Eye on Earth is a global movement launched in 2011. Eye on Earth's mission is to enable stronger integration of the environment in sustainable development by enabling all stakeholders to have the data, information, and knowledge they need. Guided by a suite of 14 principles aligned with Principle 10 of the Rio Declaration, Eye on Earth is about facilitating knowledge exchange within and between specializations and geographies. The Eye on Earth movement has two main components. First, a convening partnership of some of the foremost data and information-focused organizations in the environmental dimension of sustainable development. And they are, in alphabetical order, the Group on Earth Observations, GEO, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN, United Nations Environment, the World Resources Institute, and my employer, the Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi, to whom a special word of thanks is extended for providing the staff time and enabling technology for this webinar series. The second and core component of Eye on Earth is yourselves, a multidisciplinary, truly global community of experts, defined by a shared passion for the Eye on Earth mission, vision, and principles. The magnitude and diversity of knowledge within the Eye on Earth community is demonstrated by the number of people and distribution of those people who have registered for this webinar. You are over 420 people from over 83 countries, closer to 90 in fact, and you represent, as the map shows, every part of the globe. Whether you are attending this webinar now live or watching afterwards, welcome. By sharing knowledge and wisdom across disciplines and geographies, and driven by a shared passion, we can leverage the synergies that exist between us, close gaps, and make a significant contribution to enabling sustainable development for everyone. I'm delighted and privileged to introduce our distinguished speaker today, Craig Hansen. Craig is the Global Director of Food, Forests and Water at the World Resources Institute. And as you will recall from my introductory comments, WRI is one of the 5 Eye on Earth Alliance institutional partners. Craig is based in Washington, DC, where it is 9 in the morning. As Global Director of Food, Forests and Water, he guides programmatic strategy, catalyzes projects, and ensures a focus on results and strong staff capacity. Craig has co-developed a number of leading initiatives, including the Global Forest Watch, which is definitely worth checking out, the Global Restoration Initiative, Forest Legality Alliance, Food Loss and Waste Protocol, Champions 12.3, referring of course to the SDG 12, Better Buying Lab, and the Food and Land Use Coalition. Craig is a co-author of the current World Resources Report, Creating a Sustainable Food Future. He is a lead author on publications such as the Restoration Diagnostic and the Corporate Ecosystem Services Review. Craig has a Master's in Environmental Change and Management from Oxford University, and whilst at Oxford, he also earned a Master's degree in Philosophy, Politics and Economics, with an emphasis on environmental economics, whilst on a Rhodes Scholarship.
Well, thanks everyone, and a pleasure to be here. Craig Hansen here. I'm here to give you basically share an overview here of something that we, WRI, and a whole suite of partners that I'll talk about later, launched about a couple months ago, called Resource Watch, a new platform for providing trusted and timely data for a sustainable future. For those of you that don't know, WRI, World Resources Institute, we're a global research institution working at the nexus of environment and development. Our aspiration, like many of you on the phone, is to move society to live in ways that protect the Earth's environment and its capacity to provide for the needs and aspirations of current and future generations. WRI, we've worked a long time on data, and we're firm believers that good, timely information is a critical component, albeit not sufficient, for achieving a sustainable world. Ever since our founding, we've been, in 1982, data about the environment and human development has been core to our DNA. More recently, 5-6 years ago, we launched a product called Aqueduct that looks at water risk across 15,000 water catchments around the planet, and that online platform continues to be valuable today to private sector and public sector alike, and we're on version 3.0. In 2014, we launched something called Global Forest Watch, bringing more near real-time monitoring to the world's forests, on an annual basis, and then for the tropics every 8 days, detecting where trees are being felled and forests are being felled. Many of you may be familiar with this line of work. As we, and in both of those, WRI could not have done it without a whole suite of partners. They truly are products of partnerships. And in talking with our partners after we launched Global Forest Watch, we said, well, there's a whole other suite of issues out there, the nexus of environment development. Do we just keep on kicking out another watch and another watch and another watch, while recognizing that at the same time, many of the issues that are of importance to the private sector and public sector work at the nexus across issues, and so we need to look between the silos, and so having just a series of watches might not be sufficient. And so we decided to actually develop something called, with our partners, called Resource Watch, something that actually looks across the suite of issues, whether it's ecosystems and water, to climate, to energy, to commerce, to disasters, to societal trends, a whole suite of human development and environmental issues we thought would benefit from having more near real-time data, as well as just more available data at a global level and ultimately at a more local level, so people can better understand and have accurate information about those phenomena, as well as the intersections between them. And so I'd like to share with you here basically an overview of Resource Watch and what it looks like, and what you see here. Whoops, I hit the wrong button. What you see here is kind of the opening of the site. It's designed for being available and usable on mobile phones, and so kind of the narrative goes vertically here. You have access to data, the latest stories, the hotspots of the planet. You've got topics. People can look at specific issues and dive in that way, or there's another way you can access the data. The way we design this, like any good data set or online system, is multiple ways to access the data. So let's now go for the moment to the section on exploring the data, which is kind of one of the core aspects of this. So we have the Resource Watch has a basic setup where on the left-hand side you can search kind of in a Google-esque type of search function where you can look for data. The data has what we call cards, what gives you a little preview, snapshot, thumbnail preview of what's in there, tells you the name of it, what the source of it is, and then it allows you actually to add it to the map on the right-hand side, or you can click on details and get all the underlying details about the data, the metadata, and who provided it, what the caveats are, access to downloading the data itself, etc. And so this is kind of basic functionality on Resource Watch. And so let's kind of play with it for a moment here, and type in some few words and layer on some data sets. And so, for instance, if you just did mangroves, for instance, and we pull in over here over Bangladesh, and you have the underlying satellite imagery there, the names of the cities. You can adjust the maps. You can change the underlying background map, much like as any type of Google system, to identify the backdrop, and then you overlay your data sets. And so let's then layer on population density here, and where we've got data for multiple years, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, one can actually choose which years they want to show. So we've got population density data here, persons per square kilometer from 1975 all the way up to, we have a data set also that's more recent, 2015, and that's what you see on the screen right now. And then the bottom right-hand corner, we have basically the legend for each of these, and so one can actually understand what's being overlaid on their map. And so there is a basic functionality here about overlaying multiple data sets. It's been curated, so we've been able to get the data from open sources. We curate it so actually they fit against each other. We've played with the color schemes, etc., to minimize the chances of actually having the same color overlay on different data sets. Here you're looking at a data set that comes from the Joint Research Council of the EU, as well as Google on water. And now we're looking at they have an annual surface water extent for the planet. Here you're looking at 2015. And again, we have a time slider for that one because we have multiple years in which that data is available. So for those data sets, we give people a time slider. They can choose which time period that they're actually looking at. And so that's kind of a bit of the flavor of how the overlays work on the system. And again, you can zoom in on the right-hand side and select, you can understand where you see my cursor there. You can see basically you can gives you information about the data layers. And so in this case here, you're seeing the name of the data set, and you click on it to learn more data. And this is the underlying data. If you want to really understand what's on there, we have a nice blurb that describes what it is. We have you can open it in the map. You can download the original data set. So one thing we've designed Resource Watch to do is make it much easier for people to find the data. We've spent all the time finding it and making it readily uploadable for others, and so, or downloadable for others. And so that's what we've done, and made it freely available. So Resource Watch can be basically a conduit for folks that generate data to then get it in the hands of other people, namely the visitors of Resource Watch. So this is the page that gives you more of the background on the system and the data. Now, one thing that we also have on the system is our blog, where we have the spotlight of the week, and there you see in the left-hand corner one here around reservoirs shrinking. And this is basically analysis that have been done by WRI and/or partners. And ultimately, over time, the vision is it'll be truly crowdsourced, really good insights and spotlights that we want to actually profile. We would make it available on the site. This one was analysis that a small team had done, looking at some of the data sets on Resource Watch, looking at surface area drops over time, and especially 4 reservoirs, and the risks that we'd seen this trend in the decline in the reservoir surface area, which also means a decline in the reservoir depth and volume, and looking, basically analyzing implications for agriculture and power generation going forward. You know, there were 4 reservoirs that have been observed as having dramatic declines. This is one of those in Northwest Africa, where in this map here, we're looking at at irrigated croplands, which obviously would depend somewhat on that reservoir. And here you see the various locations of those water reservoirs. We're going to layer in a second power plants, because many of the power plants here are hydropower and depend upon that specific reservoir. And that's kind of the way we've designed this here, is it allows you to kind of see the interrelationships between multiple phenomena. Here you see actually 4 hydropower dams on the river that's being fed by that reservoir. And what the team did is they didn't look historically at data sets on power generation out of those power plants, as well as the history of that reservoir, and came up with some fascinating analyses around the risk to power generation, and therefore a whole multitude of things about the economy and politics of those countries due to shrinking surface water levels in those reservoirs. Got a lot of coverage, that's in the media, and that's kind of one thing we're trying to do, is use Resource Watch ourselves and partners using it to actually identify, hotspots of issues, to tell the world, hey world, look at this, right? That's the purpose of the spotlight is look at this. The world needs to be paying more attention to that issue. And that's part of the value proposition that we've kind of tried to design for Resource Watch. Let me move on to another area of the site. Let's type in power plants. Now this is, some of the data sets are existing and some are new. This is a brand new data set developed by WRI, Google, and a few others. This maps at about 90% of the world's electricity generating power systems on the planet. We're going to be crowdsourcing for the remaining 10%. And it basically tells you all the power plants by fuel type, by megawatt capacity. You can zoom in. It'll tell you who owns it, when it was built, the GHG emissions per megawatt hour, etc. But then you can actually overlay other data sets that relate to power. In this case here, we're overlaying water stress. And obviously, and here we've done the cursor over the power plant here in India. It gives you a flavor of the background of who owns it, megawatt capacity, all that kind of fun stuff. And here's the key for the generation type. And if you look here at projections by 2040 of water stress, if I'm an energy planner, this starts giving me a different picture of how I should be thinking about my coal-fired power plants, or any type of power plant that requires water for cooling. We've seen this in China, we've seen this in India and other places. As water becomes more scarce, it actually doesn't just impact agriculture, it also impacts the power generating system, given the needs that power generators have on water, and starts giving a slightly different take on some of the risks that certain types of generating units actually face, where the constraint isn't even just GHGs, the constraint actually becomes water. And we've had some very interesting insights and actually government engagement based upon this analysis that you're seeing here on the screen as well. In fact, one of the analyses coming out of this found that over the past couple of years, India had lost something like 3 terawatt hours worth of electricity generation due to shortages of water. Something that had flown under the radar, but because of the availability of this type of data and the analysis that can be empowered by it, people start realizing and recognizing new risks as well as new opportunities at the nexus of different environmental phenomena or sustainability phenomena. Here, power generation and water availability. So some of the data sets are new, like the power plant database. Some data sets are open source and have been pre-existing, but we've gone out and looked in the corners of the internet to find them and make them available here and curated them. This is an example here of 2015 land cover data set. You can zoom in, it gets pretty granular here. We're looking at California, for instance here. I think this data comes from the European Union. And then you can overlay water risk or whatever, population or whatever, power plants, whatever, deforestation alerts, whatever in terms of the data sets. So this is using a flavor of some of the overlays and data sets that one can actually put into the system. So again, a big chunk of Resource Watch is about the Explore section, allowing you to access more than 200 data sets. We're adding a new data set every week to the system, and it gives you this is a curated way at a global basis to start analyzing data, finding data sets you might have hard to find, and doing overlays or doing detailed analysis on them. Over time, right now, we've been given a priority to data sets that are actually global in nature. And over time, we're going to be increasingly getting data sets that are more regional or local in nature. And so as one dives into certain places, there may be more data sets that are available for some locations on the planet than others, just given the availability of some of these localized data sets. Another feature on Resource Watch outside of the Explore section is something that we call Planet Pulse. This is a three-dimensional experience of the data compared to the two-dimensional experience from the previous portion on Explore. What Planet Pulse does is actually, it pulls out those data sets that are near real time, but by which we mean information of, say, the past 4 months. And so in this case here, you're looking at earthquakes. You can actually see the fault lines here. I think this is kind of pretty cool. Who knew these data sets are actually out there, right? And here you're getting data here on earthquakes over the past 30 days, and then color coding in terms of magnitude. You can click on each button. If you click on each of the earthquakes, it'll then give you the detail from the U.S. Geological Survey about the magnitude, where it was located, the time of occurrence, et cetera, et cetera. Here's fires. These are large fires over the past week, and then we've overlaid in terms of population, just to give you a flavor of where they are vis-a-vis population centers. And again, you zoom in on each. You can zoom into a pretty high resolution on each of the dots, and it gives you. And as you get close to it, you can click it, and it'll give you all the detail about that location. What time was the fire, et cetera. Here's conflicts and protests. There's a data set out there. People are gleaning data from the media to identify battles, violence against civilians, violence against violence in remote villages, you name it, for Africa and parts of Asia. Then we have that data available on the system as well. And then there's growing availability of data on air pollution. Here, this is from ground sensors, where working with a partner, with one of our core partners, we're basically gleaning this data and getting basically air quality data in near real time on a number. In this case, this is like a PM 2.5, and using WHO kind of thresholds in terms of air quality. Again, it's not global coverage because not every place on the planet actually has ground sensors. You'll notice that Africa did not have a lot of data in it, and parts of Asia doesn't have a lot of data in it. But as more ground sensors, we're hoping that this actually can help catalyze the push for more ground sensors in areas where you have large population centers, and that can be exposed to airborne pollution, and help drive the agenda for getting more and more data available. Here we're just zooming into Mongolia and Ulaanbaatar, which actually has about 8 or so ground sensor stations around it. You can actually, if you zoomed in even further, you actually see the actual buildings in the city. But again, you can zoom in here and get data on. I think this is like on an hourly basis. As the data gets available, then we put it up on the system. Now, one thing we've done is we've allowed people to subscribe for alerts. So here, there's an alert function. As you see on the left-hand side in the box of any data set, you can say subscribe to alerts. You get this pop-up box. You basically sign up for whatever phenomenon you're looking at, whether it's deforestation, whether it's water stress levels, droughts, air pollution crossing a certain threshold. You choose your phenomena, you choose the threshold you're interested in, you choose the geographic area that you're interested in, and then that becomes the alert that you signed up for, and then it'll either send it to you SMS or it will send it to you via email. So that's kind of the alert function that is available on Resource Watch. Next up is, so this is kind of, I'm back here to kind of the home page of the site, and basically, as you can see, you can access data at the top in any way you want to. You can actually scroll down. We've got about a dozen or so types of topics one can choose between for the system. And here we're diving into another way to access the data. Isn't through the Explorer, but actually the preset data preset pages that give kind of a background on, say, climate, on water, on energy, you name it. One thing we've noticed in our as we were designing this and working with the media, who's one of our target audiences, is that, you know, boy, all that data and all those maps, that's kind of tough for us to kind of dive into right away. We just want kind of the basics on it. And so what we've done is we've created a portion that gives people just the basics on each topic before they jump into it. There's also a function that in response to user demand is we've created a chance for people to make customized visualizations that they can play with the data, customize it, and then share it. They can also create their own dashboard. And so in this case, imagine the Philippines wants their own customized dashboard on disaster risk. Someone in the Philippine government can actually then go find all those data sets that are relevant to disaster in the Philippines, you know, set up their own dashboard, and every time they go back to the site, their dashboard will be saved, it'll be there, right? So they don't have to go and recreate it or research the whole system to find landslide risks or changes in surface water in the Philippines. They have their own dashboard. And so Resource Watch is designed from our launch of our beta to enable these personalized dashboards for individuals. You can make one for, you know, where you live, for your organization, for your country, for your company, whatever subsets of data, geography, and issues are relevant to, you know, your entity. You're able to create your own dashboard, and the system will actually remember that, and you can go back and do that. So it's one of the features that we've designed in Resource Watch. As I mentioned earlier, I may be from WRI in presenting this, but this is, you know, this is not just a WRI product. It took a lot of entities, blood, sweat, and tears, and generosity to actually make this a reality. Here you see a screen of kind of the partners, the founding partners of Resource Watch. You know, Google and CartoDB and others, and Esri in terms of technology. You know, National Geographic, a great partner. Some folks providing actually data like University of Maryland and Google. You've got partnerships that are more on the use side, like the Hague Center for Strategic Studies and the British NERC in terms of science and research. So it's a nice partnership of data providers, technology providers, as well as data user, as well as the users and target audiences, as well as the funders for this project to make it a reality. So many thanks to those. Hopefully some of you are on the phone. This is your product as well as everyone else's on that slide. So thank you. Now, in terms of what's our theory of change of creating the system, we kind of have two major routes. There's the blue route and the green route on this slide. The blue route is that essentially this is about radical transparency, about making data available to anyone and everyone, such that they can use it to become more informed and to be more to ensure transparency and ensure accountability. And this is for the media and the general public, as well as for civil society or NGOs. It's really about, you know, transparency and accountability, and about, you know, having empowered civil society, right, to help, you know, hold the world accountable, help enforce, you know, the vision towards sustainability. So that's kind of the radical transparency route. There's another route which is about, you know what, better information can lead to better decisions. And so here, the system is really designed for the analysts in governments, in businesses, and research institutions who really want to dig into the data and use the explore section, and they're looking for the best data, the most up-to-date data, that the ability to do that analysis that gives that unique insight to therefore, you know, inform decision making and make it more informed, more sustainable, and allow for adaptive management as the world constantly changes. So those are kind of two theories of change in the Resource Watch system. Another feature I'd like to mention before my time runs out is it's truly open source. Almost every data set, I hate to say every because I hate to be categorical, but almost every data set, and our aspiration for every data set is to have it be open source. So then other folks can actually download it themselves as well. So and we're using a lot of open source code in making the system, and so people are able to actually take parts of our code, and you can go to the GitHub and take parts of the code and use it elsewhere. Likewise, you can help improve the system. It's also meant to be for people to be built on top of. We've done a lot of investment in accessing and curating the data, providing a bunch of functionality, the dashboards, and other types of widgets, etc. But our view is that there's a lot of actors in the world who can do a lot of good, and why not let them actually use the investment and build on the investment we've made, so they can add on top of it, much like a Lego block goes on top of a lower layer. Therefore, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can just leverage what we've invested in, and then they can do that added value and spend their resources on the build out to, you know, go deeper on a certain issue, engage a certain audience or community of concern, you name it. And so we built it out that yes, WRI is adding some of its own watches, so to speak, on top of the Resource Watch platform. But this is a place for many of you on the phone may want to build your platform on top of it as well. You have your own app, have your own website almost, but then a lot of the underlying data could actually come from Resource Watch. And the way we've architected it is you've got those cylinders on the bottom. Those are data sources from UN agencies, governments, universities, you know, Google Earth Engine, you name it, that's been providing data coming through our API. But then WRI itself, on the left-hand side, we're building a number of watches on top of this that are specialized apps. Then the next one to be launched will be something called Power Explorer. That'll be a build out of that power plant database that I just showed you to have more functionality and more analysis, more specific analytical capabilities on Power Explorer. That'll be coming out this fall. But also there's external platforms, the Partnership for Preparedness around Climate Change, big international initiative. It's powered by the Resource Watch API, has a lot of the data sets from Resource Watch, but then has its own front end because it's catered towards a specific target audience. And so it has that front end build out. But also too, entities could actually take data. So your entities could actually build an external platform on top of the Resource Watch API, leverage from it, and then have your own front end, your own website, etc. But then underneath has a lot of stuff, you know, being powered by the Resource Watch API. Perfectly fine to do that. Or we're also seeing entities like Bloomberg taking certain data sets and embedding it in their own system. So, you know, if you really want to reach the investors of the planet, you know, you want to be on the Bloomberg terminal. And so one thing that's happened is some of the data sets from Aqueduct and now Resource Watch are actually on the Bloomberg terminal. So when investors are looking at, say, water risk for investments, they're on the Bloomberg terminal. The data sets coming up are coming from the Resource Watch API. As the Resource Watch API has the most up-to-date data as it's being updated, Bloomberg terminal automatically gets that most up-to-date data as well. Therefore, the investor or the analyst doesn't have to leave the Bloomberg terminal environment. They're getting access to the Resource Watch data while they're in that environment, and kind of fits with our vision of you want to meet the user where they are. In terms of our data guiding principles, we're looking for data that's open, can be freely used, reused, and redistributed, relevant. We're constantly thinking through and talking to target audiences about what the needs are in terms of the new data sets and new functionalities for the system, because we want to be relevant. Reliable, we only post data that's been peer reviewed, either like in a journal or official government data. Of course, as we evolve to having more crowdsourced data like imagery, etc., from mobile phones or from drones. I mean, that won't be peer reviewed. We'll do a screen though to make sure that people aren't just posting pictures from a recent party or whatever, right? Make sure it's relevant. So a little bit of quality control. And then in terms of timeliness, where possible, we go for the most up-to-date data and the most complete information that's available. And so it's a constant quest of us to curate and search for the data following these guidelines. We will take data off over time, right, as new, more up-to-date data or better data becomes available. And our vision here is not to have be a library of all the data sets on the planet. We want to strive to keep it smaller than that and focus on the data that's actually most used and most relevant as we and our partners keep our ear to the ground as to where the target audiences are or where we think the issues need to be pushed. So that's it. I'm going to leave some time for Q&A. Thank you very much for joining this webinar around Resource Watch. We have the door is open. This is what the list of partners there was the founding partners, but this is anything like Global Forest Watch. We started with 20 or 30, is now over 100. I expect the Resource Watch partnership actually to grow as well over time, and we're happy to have conversations around that. So I'll turn things back over to you, Derek.
Before we turn to questions and answers, I wonder if I can just pass the floor over to Professor Alex Caldaz from a UN Environment Program. Alex is well known to those of you who have attended a number of our webinars in the past. He is Chief of Country Outreach Technology and Innovation at the UN Environment, headquartered in Nairobi, Kenya, from where he speaks to us today.
Let me start by congratulating and praising Craig Hansen and WRI, the World Resource Institute, for this fantastic platform. In fact, it's Resource Watch is really a unique platform on big data on the environment for decision making and sustainable development. So I really would like again on behalf of UN Environment to praise WRI. If there's a combination of words on the global agenda and the global setting of the environment and sustainable development, WRI is definitely such a unique institution in the world, bringing innovation in this field. So that's my first real word of thanks and vote of thanks. And at the same time, we can benefit from having WRI as a full founder and partner of Iron Earth Alliance, which proves again how much global reach Iron Earth can have. The second thought, and really on this vote of thanks, is to really underline how fantastically the Resource Watch platform brings near real-time data on such diverse fields of disaster risk, conflicts, air pollution, climate change impact, as Craig so wonderfully walk over all these, but also on the more traditional areas of water resources such as water, air, land, biota, and ocean. So in fact, we were presented with a fantastic tool that walks us over all these resources at the global level and regional and national level, and that can be of a fantastic benefit for the world. And my final really thought about Resource Watch is it really fits fantastically well in this new big agenda of the United Nations in terms of harnessing big data on the environment for sustainable development and humanitarian action. But I would really, it really aligns perfectly with the latest report with the UN strategy. In the latest report of 2018, so brand new, our UN Secretary General just underlines that the availability of timely, quality, and disaggregated data is crucial for the development and achievement of the Sustainable Development Agenda. So I think there's no better way to underline how significant this Resource Watch from WRI impacts on people, impacts on the ground, and impacts on our future. So really, I'm delighted to work with UN Environment, to work with WRI in any way possible to partner for this fantastic platform for the future.
Thank you very much for your comments, Alex. Craig, a question from Alison Hannigan of Earth Now, who is a confirmed we're working on the date webinar speaker, and she's asking, she's wondering about the value of real-time satellite imagery to platforms such as yours.
We love satellite data, and on the Resource Watch platform, we have various forms of periodicity, as well as spatial resolution, as well as source, right? Whether it's NASA or the Sentinel system, etc. So we do see the more near real for certain issues, the more near real time and the higher resolution becomes quite valuable. And so one of the things is that there's this there's the interplay right now between the public and the private satellites, right? Systems are out there now. The vast majority of satellite data on Resource Watch right now is actually from public sources, just given the cost. There are some private satellite data information in here, whether it's Digital Globe or what have you. Planet is out there, etc. as well. And one thing, one way we oftentimes look at it is, in terms of satellite systems, satellite getting to work, right? You use public transportation to get you as close as you can to get to work, and then the last leg, right? You might be using some other form of private transportation or what have you to get that last leg that can't quite get you, where the public kind of leaves off. And so I see over time, I see this nice interplay between the publicly available data from the Landsat system or Sentinel system, and then the private systems, which might differ in spatial and temporal resolution, but hugely valuable. And I think it's, 5 years from now, we're going to be talking about applications of that type of data that we haven't thought of right today.
Alison, to clarify that the platform that they're developing is offering not only real-time imagery, but real-time video from space.
Oh, cool.
Just a point of clarification.
That's great. No, we'd love that.
Alison, this is from Dennis O'Farrell, who's in Canada, and he's saying that so one can add interface on top of the platform, but then can one throw in one's own data as well? So can people add their own data?
Yeah, great question. So I'll answer it two ways. So if let's say you have a data set that you want to put into Resource Watch, there's a form on the site in terms of if you see get involved. There's a way you can actually then send us a data set to be basically make it available. So if you want to have one of your data sets or multiple of them available on Resource Watch, basically you contact us, you go to the Get Involved section, you hit a couple buttons, and then basically you send it our way. We do a quick scan just to make sure that we don't make it open for anyone to put data on there, right? But we do a quick scan to make sure it meets the criteria we just talked about, and then we can make it available then for anybody, right, on Resource Watch. That's one of getting your data on Resource Watch platform. Then there's one of where you want to build on top, which I think your question was, where let's say I want to build my own app on top of Resource Watch, and I want 10 data sets from Resource Watch on there, but also I want to add 5 more of my own. Yes, you can, because at that point in time, you're then in your own environment, right? You're creating your own user interface, but you're coding in to pull in the 10 data sets from Resource Watch, but then you're adding your own 5. And over time, we may say, wow, we'd love to hear about those apps you build, right? Because we can add it to our app store, quote unquote store. It's free, right? We'd love to have your apps that you build on Resource Watch available so other people can find it. And then, over time, we hope that more and more of the additional data sets you put in there might be of value for other uses as well, and you might be willing to have it on the broader Resource Watch system platform itself too. Great question.
Thanks, Craig. So the next question is from the Netherlands. Johan Meyer has asked, I hope I'm pronouncing the surname correctly, from the Netherlands. He's asked me to read the question again. Are subnational socio-economic data, human resource, also covered? In general, remote sensing data are much more recent than socio-economic data. Yeah,
these are great crowd, great questions. So embedded in that question are a couple things. So one is on the thing the end of the question was about remote sensing. I just want to be clear that not everything on Resource Watch is based on remote sense data, right? There's some, it's kind of probably the more sexy stuff, but there's stuff like from the air quality that's actually ground sensors. There's a lot of data sets on here that are not coming from remotely sensed from satellites. So don't walk away thinking this is all just satellite types of data. So it's a mixture. But then the question, the first half of the question was about the subnational data. Right now on the social data, a lot of it ends up being at the national level. Unfortunately, right? We've been looking and looking because we're trying to get as granular of data as we can get when it comes to poverty levels, you name it, right? And so we continue that search. If folks on the phone know of subnational or even city or even sub-city scale information that on that kind of socioeconomic level, we'd love that type of data to have on the system. There's a lot of World Bank related data here, but ends up being national level. But we're in a constant aspiration to get to that subnational and and more localized socioeconomic data.
Great, thanks again. So Yassine is calling from Aruba, and we have another a very similar question from a regular attendee of our webinars, Hansen, who is calling from, as I recall, Mauritius. So we have Mauritius and Aruba. Read Yassina's question. She says, "Good morning from Aruba. My question is, how or in what ways can we, such as a tiny island, a dot on the globe, contribute to Resource Watch?" And Hemsing's question is, I'm sure Hemsing is from Mauritius, says, "I am Hemsing from small islands. Has there been any research on the state of water reservoirs in SIDS?" So 2 SIDS-related questions.
Okay. And the question of how could a small island nation, play a role, contribute to Resource Watch? I mean, there's a role for everybody. So, it'd be fantastic if, I think the first question was from Aruba, we'd love to be engaged with your institution, the government, university, whoever is interested in the role of data for driving accountability and better decision making. We'd love to be engaged with them. I mean, as I mentioned, when we launched the beta version, we've erred on the side of having mostly globally consistent data sets. But as I mentioned earlier, our vision over time is that we're going to go deep. We may not have the level of depth in every single country on all the same issues, but where we can go deep, we'd love to go deep. And so I could imagine with Aruba, working with you all to go in and find out, what are data sets at that country or that island level that are, that really kind of start answering some of the questions and issues that are being faced there, and might be available either from local organizations or the national government, that could be either available on the broader Resource Watch platform for everyone to access and see, and it can actually inspire other nations, right, to make that type of data available. Or you could also build an own app. I can imagine there being an Aruba Watch, right, powered by Resource Watch, right, and where Aruba would actually benefit from a lot of the underlying engineering and data sets and functionalities that we've invested in Resource Watch. But then you make it your own. In the upper left-hand corner, you have the logos of whoever in Aruba's designing it. The landing page is the map of Aruba, and then it's almost pre-sorted in terms of those subsets of issues that are most relevant to that country, right? Almost its own dashboard, so to speak. But underneath, it could be kind of an engine being Resource Watch. I can imagine something like that then allows you to, like one of the earlier questions was, allows you to benefit from what's already been invested in, but then also add on your location-specific information that only you may have, right? So that I can imagine that an Aruba Watch, right? On the question about water reservoirs in SIDS, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm the wrong person. I have colleagues in our water program that might know that should know the answer to that question. And so maybe Derek, offline, you could forward me that question and the email, and I can get the right person in contact with the questioner.
Will do, Craig. 2 questions from Amal El Bekri. So we've gone from Aruba now to Morocco. I'm going to read Amal's questions for purposes of speed. 2 questions. Are these maps and information, can they be used by NGOs for free? And the second question, do we need an approval to use the research and data? So those are access issues. So
on the second question, do you need approval to use? No, you don't. It's available. I think in the metadata portion I think there's guides given on how to cite certain data sets so that the proper attribution is given to the originator of that. What was the first half of the question?
It was about cost, I think, cost to NGOs.
Oh, it's a free and open system. It's out there. It's free. You can use it. Now, if you want to build out your own, Aruba watch or whatever, then your own front end, then obviously it's some cost to be incurred by you to work with a developer to do that. But the access to the underlying engineering, etc., and using the site, adding data to the site, pulling data from the site, that's all free.
A question from Geneva from James Griffiths. Amazing data partnerships and tool. Does too much data ever lead to action paralysis? James Griffiths from Switzerland.
Hello, James. I know James well. Yes. Great. Again, another good question here of kind of being overwhelmed. And, in another version of our presentation, we start off by saying the world is awash in data, right? And the challenge is finding the signal in the noise. And I think 10 years ago, people would have felt, oh, we don't have enough data. And then, of course, for certain issues, it's true that we still don't have enough data or enough of the right data. But, as we were developing this, we realized, geez, there's a lot of data. And some of you folks on the phone have catalogs and libraries of data. It's pretty impressive, right? And so I guess our quest was, how do you find the signal in the noise? And so in the constant iteration between looking at data sources, working with our web developer, Visuality, the same folks that developed Global Forest Watch, and then at the end of the day, talking to the target audiences. And I can't stress enough how much weight we put behind talking to the target audiences about what are your questions, what are your needs. That's how we started to filter out the data sets that were included in the beta, in our launch version, the 200 plus. And it's also influencing the pipeline. We have another 200 data sets in our pipeline. It's not 2,000, right? It's a smaller subset because these are the ones that we believe through our conversations and our own analysis are the most relevant ones for the decisions. Because yes, I think you're right. You could end up, if you go to a site and you're just seeing a laundry list, right, a card catalog of data sets, you don't know what to do with it. And so we've consciously, not sure we've succeeded, but we've consciously tried to avoid that and make it easier to use and drive people more to using the data as opposed to being awestruck and thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do next.
Thanks, Craig. I think the last question before we bring it to a close now is from Alberto Gonzalez, who is, we're flying around the world today. He's in Peru. Alberto, if you wanted to put your question, I've opened your mic.
Thank you. This was a fantastic presentation, a very important initiative. And I'm asking if it is possible to receive technical assistance from the people who designed the platform for institutions like the National Institute of Glaciers in Peru.
Yeah, so I'll just make it a more generic question. To what degree can we make technical assistance available to partners that want to have building off of it or using it? And the answer is yes. The key is on the site. You can see the get involved portion, and there's like 4 ways one can get involved. And I think there is one. Contact the team, right, and have a conversation about what is your need, because oftentimes it's pretty straightforward. And if it became on the one hand, it could be something very simple as, hey, I need some help building an app, or can you help me with the system a little bit? Other extreme is, look, I'm trying to build this Glacier data set. I want to do X, Y, Z with it. Then maybe there's actually something we could work together with, jointly fundraise around, get the, because sometimes it's requiring new data to be generated, right? Which is a bit much of a longer enterprise, but important, nonetheless. And so I'd say check out our Get Involved section. Contact us and let's figure out what the need is, and we can go from there.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Craig, and thanks, Alberto, for the question. Craig, any parting comments before I bring the webinar to a close?
I just want to thank all the participants for taking an hour out of their day. This is a beta. We continually work to improve it. We would love input and advice on how to do so to make it more timely and more relevant. And we are very open to partnership to help build this out. This is a multi-partner type of initiative and a global public good in the spirit of better data for better decisions. So thank you.
Thanks, Craig. And I would like to thank you, the audience, for joining this webinar. We hope you found the webinar useful. It's a very impressive tool that they've developed. So with that, thank you. And until our next webinar, goodbye, and speak to you all soon.
Goodbye.